Hey there, Commercial Construction Coffee Talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Carson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation magazine. Well, we're digital now, but this is what it used to look like. Okay, this is May, June 2019, Crystal Springs in New Jersey. Killer wine place. And we were going to have an event there, but, when the roller coaster happened and everything got kaput, a couple years back, we got put on the burner, and I don't know, maybe we'll reschedule it. But it was a beautiful place, and I was really excited. It was for our craft brew and marketing section. We were going to have an event with them. Anyway, we appreciate them, Grace and Chris Mulvihill, for gracing the cover. And it's all God. This issue was 196 pages. Look at this. Unbelievable. I still carry a very good folio. Going digitally, you never know, but I still carry a very good folio. But the biggest magazine I ever did was in 2006, I think, or maybe it was, I had Johnny Rockets, the VP construction, on the cover, and it was 276 pages. It was like a wedding catalog, of retail construction projects. But anyway, it's always nice having the archives, looking to see what was going on. And dude, that was already 5 years ago. I've just got, my hair was probably a little browner, and I had a little more of it, but all in all, hope everybody had a great weekend. It's Tuesday. Got my Atlanta Braves shirt on because guess what? I got 70 people coming to our event tonight on the terrace down the first baseline on the second or third level at Truist Park. They're playing the New York Mets, so all the New Yorkers that are transplants down here in Atlanta will come with their Mets jersey. So half the stadium will be filled with New York people. I'm just a Yankee living in the South too, since '92. So, but I live here. When the Phillies come in town, it's where I'm from, Philly originally. I got to pull for them, or the Eagles, or the Flyers, or the Fixers, or any of those guys. But we're looking forward to a really nice day. It's beautiful out, mid 80s. It's getting hot, and just like usual, little chance of rain, but I don't think so. By game time at 7:20, we're gonna be sitting there having fun, and we'll do the wrap up in the next issue. So hope everybody's having a great week. Got a very special guest today, someone that I've known forever, and he's a true gentleman and a constant professional. His name is Tony Maldonado, and he's got his own consulting firm. He's been in the retail world forever. But Tony, say hello up in New Jersey to our audience out there at Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today, David. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I saw Tony up in New York. And Tony, what's the name of your firm? I forgot to say the name of your firm. What's the name of your firm?
The name of the firm is called Handels Klein.
Handels Klein, thank you.
Yeah.
And so I was up in New York a couple of weeks back. We had a reception in New York, and Tony was out there. It was at Chimenti's 18th floor. We had a little round table discussion, and then we're out on the terrace having cocktails. Like another beautiful day in New York. I mean, you couldn't ask for a nicer day. Not cloud in the sky, 75 degrees, no humidity. I mean, it was just beautiful there. So Tony and I were talking, and I was like, Tony, you've been this, there, come on, man, do something with me. So it's like, hey, I've never done a podcast. Let's get on there. I'm like, done. So Tony, I know how busy you are. And so I really appreciate you finding the time to tell us your story. So here's how it's going to work. We do in 3 parts. You'll tell us your story, your resume, where you grew up, brothers, sisters, where you went to school, and then, how you ended up where you are today. And then we'll talk about lessons learned over the last couple of years. And then you'll leave one positive thought or phrase and your contact info for our listeners out there. So with that said, Tony, I can't wait to hear the story. Tell us your story.
David, first of all, like I said, thank you for having me. As David mentioned, I typically don't do any kind of social media, anything, whether it's photograph and even video for that matter. So this is a special event. Number one. For me,
listen, that's special. You don't know.
He cornered me in a corner in the room, and he said, "You've got to do this." So here I am.
Yeah,
Look, I'll start with my personal story, things that you don't read on LinkedIn, because I know that LinkedIn is like the forum where people learn about everybody. But I'll start with the most important aspect of my life, which is my family. And I've been married for 33 years this year, and known my wife for 38 years. So we've known each other a long, long time. I have two boys. One is 27. The other one's going to turn 24. Both graduates, college. One is in commercial real estate. He's got his own firm. My other son is in wealth management. He's on 39th and Park, actually, Lennox Partners, and he, graduated at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. My older son graduated at Northeastern University. Both play baseball all the 3 years, actually, of their college career. When they finally decided that it's time to start making money, so they hung up their cleats and started working. But their baseball career lasted much longer than mine. I played middle school and high school, never played in college. They played from literally t-ball all the way through third year of college. So they are very big into baseball, if you may, and have been really good at it. Now their new sport is golf, so they spend most of their time playing golf, and they're teaching me to get out more often, which I'm doing more. But outside of that, it's the family. We live here in northern New Jersey, about 40 miles northwest of the New York City, and I've been, as you know, in multiple retailers. I started my career way back, so I'll start with. I've been exposed to the construction real estate development world, God, since I was probably 12 years old. So my father had his own engineering firm. The name of the company was Maldonado and Associates. He was predominantly focused on mechanical engineering, but not the type of mechanical engineering that most of us, know HVAC and whatnot. He was actually involved with pressure vessels, treatment plants, chemical plants, and whatnot. So I grew up around that environment. He started the business in our own house when we lived in Hasbrook Heights. And then from there, I really was engulfed with it, so to speak. And, he used to allow me to do some edits on the drafting boards. And those are way back. Understand what a drafting board is.
Yeah,
nowadays
slanted.
it's the cat. Exactly. So I used to be involved doing edits at night and the weekends, even in the summers. I used to work for him. He'd take me to job sites and whatnot. I learned what the inside of a boiler looked like. I learned what the inside of a smokestack looked like. I, did a lot of diagrams on, like I said, in treatment plants, whether it be chemical sewage treatment plants. And, I started working with my dad when I got out of school. And as most people that have worked in family business know, it's an all-in environment, right? You start off doing everything and anything, whether it's, the drafting, whether it's the cleaning, whether it's going to the job site, whether it's finance and whatnot.
Go get me some donuts.
That's that too.
Yeah.
So I started working with him. I got him involved. So the business was based in down South Jersey, in Bordentown, New Jersey. So we were doing a lot of New York City Housing Authority business for a lot of retrofits for new boiler room construction. But we were also doing subdivision when South Jersey was literally farmland. So we started doing a lot of civil work, which is where I got involved with him at. And, in those environments, we had a lot of work, and we were working about 60, 80 hours every week, and at that point, you're like 20 something. I'm like, all right, this is not for me. I don't want to work 80 hours a week, and looking back, you don't appreciate what those hours actually meant, right? And the learning that you go through it. Honestly, I got tired of having dad tell me what to do in some ways. I said, I'm going to try something on my own. So I answered at the time, a posting for a role for a project manager at a retailer. It's a part of another retail that most people don't know, which is Petrie Retail. And they were looking for a project manager / drafting manager. I'm like, okay, I can probably see what I can do. So I go there and I'm like, well, I have this level of experience. I have, some architectural design. I got some engineering design that I've been involved with. And the guy goes, well, it seems like you might know something, right? So he goes, I'm going to give you 3 months. I'm going to test you out. And in 3 months, I'm going to ask you, do you like what you're doing? I go, okay, well, that's fine. I'm like thinking like 20-something-year-old guy says, oh, whatever, just let me work, right? I want to make my own money here. So I'm fast and furious. The speed, as we know in retail, is always fast, and there's nothing different. It's always, how fast can you move and quick, ring those registers, if you may. So the one thing, 3 months later, he comes, taps me on the shoulder. He goes, Sal, how do you enjoy the work? I go, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts because, we're running like, 100 projects a year at that time. And he goes, well, do you like it though? I go, well, what I like about it is that it is fast, is you're always moving, you're always achieving something. You're seeing your work go from, design concept to fruition in such a short period of time that it's really phenomenal for me, because I've been involved in projects where, from concept to reality, it's like 2 years long.
Yeah, a couple years. Yeah, sure.
So he's like, well, he goes, if you love it, you're going to be in retail forever. I go, you're out of your mind. This is, I'm thinking this guy's nuts. Well, here it is, 30 some odd years later, I'm still in retail. So, I started, like I said, in Petrie. I worked for one of the divisions, used to be called G&G Rave. They were building about 200 stores a year. And I did that for 5 years. And then I recall that, the Gallon brothers, really the company, the group that owned them, they were part of Petrie. And they began to decrease the volume. So then I got one of my favorite contractors at the time tapped me on the shoulder and said, listen, Ed Taylor's looking for a project manager. Would you be interested in doing that? So I'm like, you know what? This one's slowing down. This one seems to be growing. Let me go jump over here. So I go in an interview. They hire me. I start with Ed Taylor. They had 300 stores when I started with them. I started in project management. I was one of two project managers. And within 6 months, it was like growing like crazy. We're doing another 100 projects. I graduated from project manager to director of construction, took over the department. I had the processes that I had learned, not at Petrie, with my father, is what helped me get to the next level. And, really taking all those behaviors, all those, process and procedures that I was able to really rely on from an early age to say, here's how I would do it differently. Some of those learnings I could apply to retail and formate, a lot of different things. You're able to move faster. So Ann Taylor went from 300 stores, 309 at the time, to when I left them 13 years later, 960 locations. So we grew them quite a bit. We did, Ann Taylor Loft, and Taylor factory stores all over the country. Loft was, organically grown in-house. We designed it in-house and built all the stores. The head of real estate at the time was one of my mentors and one of my best friends in the industry. She is a phenomenal lady. Learned a lot of things from her, and we moved forward. And I got to that point where 13 years of one company, I was like, okay, let's see what else is out there. I needed to try something new. So then Gap came knocking on my door. And I said, you know what? I really don't want to move to the West Coast. Well, I ended up moving to the West Coast. But here's the thing. I moved to the West Coast. I had a place in Burlingame, California, but I commuted back and forth for 10 years because at the time, my sons were just getting into the high school years. And my wife goes, there's no way we're moving. Yeah. So, some of those things you compromise and you start doing, things that you think or thought you would never do. And you end up commuting. So I spent 10 years with Gap, and it was a phenomenal experience because, it was on a rebound sort of curve that the Gap was having. We were growing internationally. We were shrinking the size of the stores domestically. We launched them into China. We launched Old Navy into Mexico. And, it was a really the most call it dynamic company that I worked for because there were 6 different brands when I started, and there were 6, sort of presidents to serve. And my team was pretty significant. We had a lot of people that, that did the work, obviously. And we had a lot of outsource contractors, outsource project managers as well, and architects that we relied upon. And, the flexibility that the team was transformed into from originally doing it all to go into an outsource model was phenomenal. So it was super interesting to me to see the growth within that team and obviously within the company. Gap taught me not only to be more flexible, more dynamic, but it also taught me to become a marketer, if you may. So part of my job was not just to lead the team and manage the process, was also to market the team because we're a central shared services group that needed then to go back to the brands and go, here's what we've done for you lately. Because the value that you have to show them is the only reason they trust you, if you may, in some ways, right? So what we say to do, what we deliver, and ultimately what they see is, has to be all matching. So challenging in this environment of retail because a lot of retailers don't see the value of the construction team in particular, the design team, the facilities team. I actually think the construction, design, and facilities team have a lot more strategy in their veins than anybody else. So
they're all connected to the hip. I don't care what everybody says. I always tell people real estate's right in the beginning because without the leases, you can't build or do any of that stuff. But you got real estate that is like the big Goliath in the room, and then you got construction, facilities, development. They're all connected at the hip.
Well, they have to be. And I think that's the lesson learned, for a lot of different groups. And I think a lot of people know that. But, the reality is that one of the things that I profess all the time is that, I've led the real estate teams, I've led the design construction, all the disciplines under real estate, and they really have to collaborate. They have no other choice but to. So one of the key metrics, that I've always used to put in is that their goals have to be tied into as a unified goal, if you may, so that if one fails, they all would fail. And there have been times where they did phenomenally, and there were other times where they failed because one person didn't, right? So they learned the value of pulling each other's sort of rope along the way. Again, I decided that 10 years on the West Coast and the commute was getting a little tiresome. So on a flight from San Francisco to the East Coast, I pondered what's the next step, and a recruiter called me and said, there's this company down in Florida called Chico's FAS that's looking for a head of development, and would you be interested in talking to them? And the reality is that I wasn't really looking to go to Florida either, quite honestly. I was looking to come back to New York. But the more I talked to Shelley Broder, the CEO at the time, the more I got intrigued by what Chico's was trying to accomplish. And Chico's was slightly different than what Gap was doing. Chico's had about 2,100 store portfolio at the time, and their challenge was that we're too big. We have overstored our population of Chico's brand in particular. We have to right size the portfolio. But more importantly, alongside with that is, there's a aged portfolio on top of it. There was stores, according to at the time, the board members are showing up at stores, and this is going to make a lot of facilities members cringe. There were stores with floors that were being held down with tape, packaging tape that from the store being the walk in because nobody had maintained them. The fact of the matter is that that's something that through the cycle of retail, there's a lot of stores out there that are making profit, but just enough to survive, let's call it. And as a result, the investment is not necessarily there. So consequently, you'll unfortunately see some of these things, and not a lot of senior leadership ever get out to the stores on top of it. So you don't see it until you see it, which is the worst thing that could happen, right? So we went in there and we started with a market planning strategy to right size the portfolio, brought in multiple stakeholders into the process so that everybody had a voice. We created a 3-year plan, presented to the board, signed off on it. And alongside with that, we created a reinvestment strategy. What that means is that stores that were out there that were in disrepair required some level of investment, right? To bring them up to the latest and greatest brand standard, but not stores that some of those stores could not afford the level of investment that were required. So we tiered the investment portfolio. So there was different buckets, if you may, of investment, meanwhile always signifying that this change, right? And that the consumer or the customer would come in and go, oh, I see something different. And by the way, it looks refreshed, it looks new, it looks more appropriate for the brand or the banner that we're trying to change. That was one strategy. The other strategy was to redefine White House Black Market from a design perspective, and then grow Soma with a new concept, and then obviously create a real estate strategy behind it. So that was Chico's. In 4 years of Chico's, leadership change. Shelley left, and as a result, just about the entire leadership was changed. So these things happen. Unfortunately, when you're aligned
retail,
yes, it is definitely retail, and it's a cycle, right? And it's always known because again, the CEO leadership, whoever that person handpicked, usually doesn't last as soon as the CEO exits the company. So part of the change happened within 3 months after Shelley Broder left. Just literally everybody. There's not one person there that was there when I was there, from a leadership perspective. So that brought me back north to Foot Locker. And Foot Locker, I started with the construction department, design, facilities, corporate facilities. And then 6 months in, they said, oh, by the way, take real estate. And that became a global role, which encompassed, the EMEA teams, the Asia Pacific teams, and obviously the North American teams. And that was also a fast-paced environment because we were shrinking the mall portfolio and going into a street environment with community stores, resetting the other brands and trying to really differentiate the other brands and try different scenarios. Again, can't go into a lot of detail, but it's there's definitely a lot of things that we did and accomplished with Foot Locker that they hadn't done in several years.
So after Foot Locker,
Foot Locker, I decided that maybe it's time for a change, and at this point I'm trying something new. I'm trying consulting. I got out of corporate America officially, and I decided that I would give a try to this consulting thing that I've heard so much about. And, thank God in some ways, that, all my network that says, yeah, we can help you. We can allow you, if you may, to intervene in some of these projects that we got working. And so we're doing some work for some retailers. And, as a consultant now, what I realize is that some retailers that we're working with, they don't want us telling people who we're working with. They don't want
Yeah.
us to. So I'm like, okay, so I can't say the names, but the brands. Some of those brands that we're working with. They're fast paced. They're in some of them are in the athleisure world. Some of them are in the mattress world. Some of them are in the entertainment world, food and beverage world. And we're doing a lot of different things for them. In some ways, we're starting on the front end with some of the market planning aspect of it. And other times, we're looking at exploring, if you may, where the opportunities are for cost savings. And then in the other part is really supporting from a project execution perspective with peak shaving, right? They don't have their resources, but they have a volume of projects that have come in with, real estate coming in, kind of sort of late in the game, or, new opportunities that became, evident because of other retailers vacating the space. And now they have opportunities to go back into it. So those are the things. So we were able to negotiate and get in and bring in project managers, bring in design managers, bring in, the right resources to help those retailers become successful when they need us. So
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, you and I are like basically cut from the same cloth, listen to your story, because I'm from Philly, went to prep school in Jersey, started growing up in my dad's showroom in New York, in Manhattan. He was in upholstery furniture. And then on my mother's side, they were in construction since 1888, demolition. You know,
wow.
we were doing, like, my cousin when in Philly, when you're at 16, you got your driver's license. So I think probably you and I got the driver's license. You and I are probably the same. We're only 26, you and I. So all the grandsons, everybody had to work in the scrapyard. So when you got your driver's license, you knew you were getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be
That's
out
right.
constructions. But I grew up on the cranes and all that. So all that stuff that you did with your dad, you don't think you're learning stuff, but you are. And and I went to the corporate world. I gave up all the family businesses, and and then I went on my own, and here I am standing. I bought I bit a big chunk off the entrepreneurial apple, and I haven't looked back since. The only thing with entrepreneurship, it's all you, period.
Well, that's definitely the case,
You can
and
look, you're going against yourself, and you want to run your company and shoot, man. I went through, I started my company right after 9/11. 2 months later,
wow.
I went out and I rolled, and everybody was telling me, no, they were poo-pooing me. And I'm like, nope, I rolled the dice, and here I am standing 20 some odd years. I guess it's my 29th or 30th anniversary is coming up on the 24th. I'm
Oh,
turning the
wow.
big 60 on the 29th. And then my son and my wife were born on the same day, on July 16th. And then you got Father's Day next weekend. So it's like, boom, 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 boom. So, but when you're talking about, family and up north, I came down here. I still have family up north, and out west. But it's so cool when you go back, and you see everything where you grew up and all. It was I look back, and I've taken little bits and pieces out of everything. I even did retail when I got out of school. I did my retail experience at Levitt's. I put more of
Oh,
those
wow.
brass. Well, we were in upholstery, so my father
Yeah.
knew my father knew Gary Levitt's, who started Levitt's Furniture. He was a pilot, and so was my dad. So that's how my father got his line, Crestline and Hickory Hill, into Levitt's. They were pilot buddies. It's all timing and business. Everything who you know how it goes.
That's right.
But I put more of those brass tables, those lost leaders in the back of the thing. I scotch guarded. I was a picker. I was in customer service. I unloaded freaking trucks of Chazés. I mean, oh my God, I did everything. And then it was time for me to go to North Carolina, where there was like one hotel and one restaurant where the factory was in Hickory. And I was like, and it was in the middle of the 80s. It was like kind of the return
Right.
of recession, inflation, 18% interest rate for a house. And I was like, I just don't know if furniture's my bag. But listen to your story, I was laughing. I'm like, God, that sounds like me, and
Well,
but what funny is, some people in retail, I can look back, I mean, a very loyal subscriber base. So some people stay at one firm, and other people, they'll see the writing on the wall, just like you did that with that first job. Yeah, hey, you know what, maybe it's time, I go in there. And but there's nothing wrong with it, because
yeah.
everything where you went, you picked up something. So now, as a consultant, you're able to be an asset to a lot of different firms than you probably would have been, even though a lot of those were in apparel. It was funny. I had Ann Terrell, I had Rick Migliarelli on my cover. I forget what year that was, 06, 07.
It had to be after I left, so it had to be
Grace Daly
06.
was there, I mean, I go down the names of all, all the people. And so but it's funny how you see, as a publisher, I go through the circulation cards. So I kind of see where everybody's going. And just like you, I've seen your journey on LinkedIn and all that stuff. But what a phenomenal resume. I mean,
appreciate that. But I like to say I only had 4 jobs. So
hey, and your kids are in there, and I went to Petty in Hightstown. So
I know exactly where it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I was a 4-year boarder there. So I was going to ask you what high school you went to in Hasbrook Heights.
It was Hasbrook Heights High School. Where else?
Hasbrook Heights. Okay, I'm just kidding. Maybe we played you in lacrosse or something. I don't know. We played everybody. We were like the little kid off exit 8 off the turnpike, taking on all the big freaking Columbia High School, Harrison. I go, Livingston. I can go down the list. But,
so it's funny you say Hightstown, because I did so many subdivisions in Hightstown with my dad, because that used to be all farmland, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When you went from Hightstown to Princeton, Princeton Day School we used to play. But anyway, it used to be all farmland, and now I'm sure it's all built up. I went back for my 35-year reunion, 30, I forget. Anyway, Hightstown's kind of still the same. It's a little more built up, but it's still a lazy little town, and only about an hour from New York, depending where you're going, an hour and a half to Philly, and to the shore of the beach, you got it right there. So it was, and I had keys to everything. I was a bad boy. So I went to wherever my parents weren't. We were partying that weekend. I got the keys to Margate. Let's go. So
that's awesome.
No, your story. I just laughed when I heard that whole thing. I was like, oh my God, it just sounds like me, So, well, let's talk about the roller coaster over the last 3 years.
Oh boy, yes.
And March 2020, boom, everybody's hit by a 2x4 with rusty nails. No one knows what's going on. It's going to be a couple weeks, folks. Hate to tell you, it's now 3 years later. And anyway, but we've come out of it, and a lot of people that I've talked to over, the last 3 years, just on my podcast in general, everybody said that they've had unbelievable growth. If they had more PMs or supers, they would have been able to build more stuff, but they don't want to bite off more than they can chew. But they learned so much about their employees, about themselves, about their business, and the way that they want to operate, that when you look at the pre-shutdown to the post-shutdown, all the companies, they kind of have the same name, but they're a little different, whether it's their philosophy or the way that they internally. But once again, construction. You got to get everything's done by the opening of the store. If you're doing a new store, the circulars are printed, we got to get everything done, and we got to get that door open, And so talk about, some of the things that you learned over the last years that, you've been be able to incorporate into your entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, look, I'll start by, saying that when I started with Foot Locker, one of my first things that I did was, go out to the EMEA region for a trip. We landed in London. From London, went to Vienna and to the other corporate office. And we came back, and I hadn't heard about this thing that was out, internationally called COVID. I came back, and about a week later, things just shut down. So I met about 10 people live in Foot Locker. The rest of my, call it year and a half, was behind the screen, as we're doing right now. I met the CEO that way. I met the CFO that way. I met all the presidents, if you may, that way. And you figure out a way to create connectivity through this medium, because it's no longer shake somebody's hands or be in presence on a personal basis. So looking back, all those things in how to rely on technology and quite honestly software that allows you to do things differently. I look back and I go, if we didn't have Teams, we'd be dead right now. Zoom, as you know, had a major crash initially that everybody didn't want to utilize and whatnot. So Teams has become this model of, let's make sure they get on Teams calls. And, if I hear that ring today, I'm like, oh, gives me shivers, because, I spent so many hours on Teams and people calling me through Teams. So, looking back, I'm going to myself, it really transformed the industry in a way that it allows you to see what can be done. So what I like to say is like action at a distance, right? You can navigate a project, you can navigate an initiative, you could actually discuss and have a real conversation with an individual over the Teams or over video calls without having that, oh, I really don't, I really didn't get anything out of it, or I didn't get the information. You can get so much more today. And along with Teams, there's so many other software platforms that are additions to it that makes your life so much easier. You don't no longer have to jump on a plane and go across the world to see something. You can see it literally live with the software. You could actually do a 360 view, if you may, of the project or whatever is sites for that matter, even real estate. So you learn how to become so much more flexible than you were before. You begin to communicate differently, how to document things differently, how to send information, if you may, differently in a way that makes most sense. So looking back at it, one of the things that I took away from it is the fact that in Teams or as a remote employee through the roller coaster ride, you had to create a lot more PowerPoints to communicate your message. And I am like PowerPoint like to hear, but in today's as a consultant, that is literally my introduction. Right? It's let me tell you what we do. More importantly, let me tell you what we can do. And everyone has a different structure to tell a different story depending on the consumer or the client that we're going after. So,
Hey, like this podcast, I
like
want
this
to go out. I bought a couple microphones, and my plan was to do the podcast out in construction sites because I was traveling and doing the thing, and I had my 10th anniversary in January in Jacksonville. I had my first cocktail party down in Coconut Grove, and I was in Milwaukee looking for hotels for my fall retreats in March, and everything got shut down. I was going to go watch University of Denver play Ohio State in Columbus. I had a ticket because I was going to go up, and watch the game with a client. Anyway, that got canceled too. And but the whole technology thing, like myself, I had a digital magazine. I just ignored it. It was like my secondhand child, whatever. It was there. It was collecting all this data. I just didn't know it. And I was lucky I had it. I don't know what I would have done without it. But Teams, Zooms, I have them all. Okay. Because that's just how this is the first year over the last 3 years I've traveled. Okay. I got on a couple flights over the 2 years, and then but I drove, if I went anywhere. And I drive anywhere. Anything less than 5 hours, I drive. So I'm in Atlanta. So I'll do Birmingham, I'll do Savannah, I'll do Charlotte, I'll do, Orlando. That ride I can't handle. Okay. Orlando to Atlanta, it's about 7 hours. Oh, yeah, man. The only thing good on there is the hot rod museum off the highway that you want to stop at. As your bucket list, if you're going down I-75, you got to stop there. Don Garlett's museum. Anyway, so when I look back at technology, like here, I was going to do it on the construction site, and then all of a sudden I said, okay, I'll do one a week. And I was terrible. When I look back at some of my original videos, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I'm still not that good, but I'm much better than I was. And then I bought the software, I learned how to edit and all that stuff. And it was tough because you can't replace in person. So what I tell people now about, they're up to here on Teams. I mean, you hear that, oh my God, it's another call coming in. I know people hate it, but God, what would they do without it? Because I had a project manager. I've told the story a couple times where he said in one day he was, over, in the Middle East. He was in South Africa. He was in Canada. He was down in Mexico, and he did a couple of walkthroughs in the States. And all that was all in one day. But before the shutdown, that would have taken weeks.
Yes, exactly.
So now you can pick where you want to choose, who you want to see. Like you're in New Jersey. So if you had a project you were doing in, let's say, in Philly, okay, I could take the train down, I could drive down, or I could do the meeting, depending on what it is. You could pick which meetings you really want to go to. Just like every day, I pick about 10 people I want to talk to on the phone, whether it's on Zoom or on my cell. It doesn't matter to me, but I want to talk to those people more in depth than, sending an email or so forth. So your cell phone is your best tool that you can have, because there's 8 billion people at the palm of your hands. Okay. Right here. And if you have all the time, if you have a cell phone and a Gmail address, oh my God, you're golden. So You know, it's let me get your take on AI. Just what's your take on AI? Coming
You know,
from an engineering family and all that, I know you've played, you know, what's your take on it?
I think AI, if used appropriately, will be a phenomenal tool. I think that's the caveat that I like to throw out there. You know, there's one of the conversations that I was part of recently was, you know, how does AI play into real estate, you know, in retail for that matter, right? So if you think about the analytics that go on in real estate on the front end, you know, market analysis, demographic analysis, and whatnot, a lot of that is pulled by obviously individuals, human beings through different platforms and kind of cobbled together, triangulated, and go, oh, by the way, based on the demographic profile or consumer profile that we're trying to solve against, here's what we think it is. Well, that what I just stated in about a nanosecond here, that took weeks of somebody to do. Well, AI will go, done. Here you go.
Yeah.
I think that's where it becomes super useful, and I think that is the way of the future. I think that, you know, layering that in and being able to put in something and it just, you know, regurgitate something that is phenomenal. Like I see some of these posts on LinkedIn, quite honestly, that are creative posts, I'll say, where AI was asked to do something for a particular retailer, and then creates an environment that is truly, you know, generated by AI that most likely a call it creative person, a designer, may not have come up with. You know, they create, you know, AI does a better job in some ways in that regard, I think. Other times, I think again, it's misused and misunderstood in some ways, and I think people fear it because they're, oh, loss of job. Well, AI can't solve for everything. So
You know, I have on my next podcast, I have a guy, he's a software guy out in the Bay Area, and he's going to do a demo. I'm going to give him share the screen with him, and he's going to do a demo and show you how ChatGPT, how you use AI with construction. And he's going to go through it, a little 10-minute video. So that's coming up out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. If you don't know how to use AI, ChatGPT or any of the AI platforms that are out there, listen, it's mind blowing. I last at the end of the summer, I'm sitting on Facebook and I found this guy, digital marketer. I liked what he had to say, you know, and I knew they were gonna, you know, try to upsell me, whatever. So I spent a weekend, 2.5 days at this. I did a 12-week boot camp. So I learned all this digital stuff because I was a digital guy. Then about a couple months back, they came out to me and said, hey, David, you should do this AI class. And I was like, okay, here's the upsell, get my checkbook out. But I was already an elite member. And so it was, and I was like, you know what? This is the one thing that I really wanted to know. I wanted to know AI, just, it was the missing part that the other boot camp didn't have. And you know, I'm sure they're going to combine them, but it's been mind blowing to watch. You know, I've learned Mind Journey, ChatGPT, cloning voices. I'm learning, you know, how to do reels. I have over 500 videos on my
wow.
YouTube channel. So I'm going to be able to do short. I mean, and now I've learned with my magazine platform. Now I'm like, okay, now I can actually make it really interactive with people. And so out there, if you haven't hit my site lately, you're going to be able to see some stuff with the magazine, with the content and all that stuff. But AI, like I'm a copy guy, so I get editorial copy all day long. And I have to put to people that, you know, these bloggers that are out there that send me content that want to post it on the site. I'll tell them, look, I don't want AI generated content because if you're letting AI do it and you're still charging me the same rate, I should charge you less because you're not doing any work. You're just,
Yeah.
you're doing a little work, you know? And I'm like, I'm going to buy software that can pick up if it's AI or not, because, you know, what do I need you for? I can use AI to do that stuff, you know? And, but the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, they're not getting it back in. And, you know, construction,
No doubt.
you know, construction, like if you're doing a high rise and you want all the HVAC ducts to be straight, AI programming with a robot is a really cool gig, you know. But to me, you know, construction, you're still going to have laborers. You're still going to have people to build the machines that build the machines that build the machines. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see. Remember this day, June 6th, 2023. And June 6th, 2028, 5 years from now, let's take a look at what construction is, because it's definitely going to make a mark on a lot of sectors. And people are going to have to get retrained, you know, and it's in my opinion, but it's the rage. And the guy I'm taking the class from, he's 28 years old. high school dropout. Okay. He's worth about $100 million. He's written 3 books. And he told me the first class was, he said, listen, everything you're going to learn over the next 10 weeks, because AI is moving at warp speed, will be outdated, but at least you'll have the foundation, you know, I'm just telling you now. So but technology, getting back to about Teams and Zoom, you know, all the time I'm like, oh no, I come on the podcast, I got to do Zoom, Teams, whichever one you want. And they're like, oh, I'm like, don't, come on, you know, they're not all that bad. I know you spend a lot of time on it, you know, but you really do have to listen. You're not going to be able to replace in-person meetings. And those are the ones that they're important. You probably need to get it, you know, get in the car, get on the plane and go. And
yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I think the personal, let me tell you differently. What I worry about, the things that have evolved into because of the pandemic, technology sort of meet and greets and classes and everything else that we do today. What I worry about is that interpersonal skills that are usually developed when you're in person with someone else, right? So when I look at my sons, for instance, they're one of them, I told you, the wealth management deal, they're literally behind Teams half the time. And I go, get out and see people. That is the only way to make a connection, number one. Number two is the only other way to really pick up on social, cues, if you may, of people and how they're truly reacting. Behind the screen, you may see something, but you're not going to see everything, right? Especially when you have multiple people on teams. You're only going to see the person speak, and you're not going to see the whole room. Sometimes you do, but even then you miss it because you're not there live. So to me, the succession of younger, I call it, professionals, and having the ability to learn that is what I worry about. So.
Yeah, no, once again, I am totally agree with that. There were so many people, I went from print to face to digital, and but I had no choice. I was forced into it. But I don't miss the printer. I don't miss the post office. I don't miss those 5th century outfits, but it's dicey, it's kind of like, is my prototype going to work? Because I'm going to build 200 of these things, and so when I went digital, it was kind of scary. And I remember when I went on my own, I was waiting for my first issue. I put it out in 2 months. I had director of construction at Home Depot on my cover. They were doing 140 stores a year. I mean, it was like, during the rah-rah days in the early, and it was right after the dot-com burst and 9/11, and, but here, I remember I was in Las Vegas. I was walking a show. And I went to the hotel to get my magazine because I had them overnight, and I opened it up, and there it was, Mark Beers on the cover, and I smelled the ink, and I was like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. I can't, and now every month I just build another one. I'm still in construction, to my grandparents, my family in Pottstown outside of Philly. Hey, I'm still in construction. I'm just not using acetylene torches and asbestos and, all that stuff. I'm using paper, ink, content. And now I do it digitally, but I'm still a builder. I build it every month, and I'm proud of it. I'm like, oh, wow. And that's but I still don't get to hold it. That's the one thing I miss, even though I have a print on demand service, I still miss getting them, in the mail. It's just, it's like Christmas every month, so. Well, Tony, if there was one positive thought or phrase as we end our session here, that you'd want to leave with our listeners out there in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk, what would it be as we go into Q3 and Q4 of 2023?
Oh God. To me, I've always followed really a simple mantra. There's 3 words I always align myself with: easy, bold, and real. So easy means go easy, approach people in an easy way. No one really likes a big hammer to kind of, drive a point. So the easiest way to approach someone is to just be, soft, if you may. So I tell my sons that all the time: be easy, right? Don't drive so hard. The bold is really about making decisions that are bold, taking actions that are bold, and communicating something, in a bold way, so that you're always remembered, right? And you're made a statement, you have a point of view. Don't be that individual that sits on the sidelines and not say a word. So be bold about things that you do. And then really the last one is be real, be yourself. Everybody respects an authentic self. No one wants to be someone else, hopefully. And if you do, that's a different conversation. But people do respect authenticity. So therefore, be real. So I will leave with that. And if those 3 things are married together, I think people could be really successful in this environment.
EBR, Remember that. Okay. Easy, bold, real. Remember that, and hey, listen, I'm right there with you. Listen, you told me no so many times over the last 25 or whatever years, how many years I've known you, come to my event, do this, do that. No, no, no. And I was telling people, I think it was a perhaps previous guest. I was saying that, I'm a sales guy too. So I get no all day long. It's a numbers game. The more no's you get, you're going to get some yeses. It gets harder depending on what the economy is or whatever. But I know that if I don't get enough no's, I'm not going to get the yeses. And no doesn't mean no. It means no at that time. You might get 5 or 6,
That's
5 or
right.
6. You got to go no's 5 or 6. So I probably went like 40 with you. And here you are.
I saw a recent post on LinkedIn, and nowadays I'm actually on LinkedIn more often than I should be, because I just find it phenomenal that some of these posts, to your point, you get a lot of information. But there was one post, and I'll give credit to someone when I remember, but at this point I'll send it back to you. I saw this one post that said, it started with no, 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 like several lines of no, 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 and then at the very end it said yes. He goes, when you get the first yes, it forgets all the other no's.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at it. Look, athletes, you're going to make mistakes. You know how many times, Michael Jordan probably didn't miss the free throw. I mean, Tiger Woods, I mean, they hit thousands and thousands and thousands of balls a day. They play 72 holes and then they go out and they freaking go play another, they go hit another 500 balls. So and not every one was perfect,
That's right.
And I was watching who's the Memorial this weekend, and they were showing the bloopers. And McElroy was on the side of the sand trap, where he was in the sand and he yanked it, and then he hit another one over. He like quadruple bogeyed the freaking hole. He went like -3 or 4 to even, And but there's a guy that's unbelievable, multiple champion. He's got those days too. So he's only human. So
that's right.
That's awesome stuff. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk
Yes.
consultancy projects, or, hey, I was at Foot Locker or whatever, how would they reach out to you?
Well, obviously LinkedIn. Everything that you need to know is right there in the contact information. But if not, you could always reach, the website, www.handelsklein.com, or you can call me on my cell. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me. So.
All right, awesome. Hey, listen, if someone wants to get in touch with me, I'm at davidc@ccr-mag.com. And listen, we had, I don't know, 29 some odd million people last year. And, I love getting content. So send me something. Could be a charity event, could be, new personnel, case study, what have you, anniversary. Send it to me. I'll post it. I'll send you the link. It's share, SEO, search engine optimization. So, it's win-win. But it's just like the lottery. I know you don't like me when I say this, but if you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. So if you don't send me something, I can't look at it. And I'll come back to you personally. I'll get all my emails, and believe me, let me judge the book by its cover, and I'll find a place for it. It's very tough getting in the magazine, but we got plenty of social media channels, and we got content galore. We want to keep it going. So send us to us. Well, Tony, pleasure having you as a guest on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. I've got to go out and hit balls with you. We talked about that up in New York, and listen, the second half of the year, I think, is going to be very, very exciting. Lots going on. Every day is, I'm mentally drained from whatever happens, politically, business, and what have you. And you got to catch some Z's. And but before you know, it's going to be Christmas and New Year's, and we're going to have to do it all over again in 2024. And I know you're going to be there.
That's right. Well, listen, David, I know that you had an event at Crystal Springs, which you said kind of sort of, canceled and somewhat. And I'm like 30 minutes away, not even 25 minutes away.
Have you been there before?
Of course, I've been there, and I've been to Valley Ellen, which is right next to it. So if you get back this way, let's get out there. So,
well, I have a craft brew section in my magazine. So a guy he's in East Brunswick. He was one of my writers for the craft brew section, and he knew Chris Mulvihill at Crystal, and they did this kind of wine gig during the summer, and we were gonna tag along, and everything was looking, like everything went kaput, but
Yeah.
we had him on the cover, and then we looked, and he's like, yeah, we should do this thing, and blah, blah, blah. And they got thousands of people, and it looked like a beautiful, beautiful place. But once again, pictures tell 1,000 stories, nothing like seeing it in person, and oh yeah. So listen, didn't happen then, but it definitely could in the future. So we just have to find timing in business is everything as far as
You're not kidding.
Well, Tony, say goodbye from Jersey.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for having me again, David.
Yeah, and listen, everybody out there, if you're on a construction site, make sure you stay safe, because we want you coming home at night. Summer's coming. I don't care where you are. Drink lots of water. It's getting water. I'm from Philly. Water. I say AWADER. Drink lots of water, and stay hydrated. And hey, and do me a favor, hit the like button. Okay, we want the algorithms. We want to get this stuff out so everybody hears Tony's story. So we appreciate the likes. So with that said, everybody have a great rest of the week. Go Braves! Beat the Mets tonight at our reception. Looks like no thunderstorms, so we're gonna have a nice crowd. And Tony, I look forward to seeing you, maybe hitting the links for. And you got to give me a couple strokes, okay? Because I know you're a shark.
I think it's the other way around, but thank you anyways.
All right, everybody. We will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Tony, have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Take care, David.
See ya.